I think we're alive. We'll check. Everything working? This doesn't say it's working. That's concerning. Where are we connected to? Let me double check. It's not Pixel. It shouldn't be Pixel. Not Pixel. Not offline. Where am I streaming with? Are you just slow? There it goes. Okay. Cool. We got it. We got it. We got it. I'm alive. Zero viewers. Good. Great. Excellent start. What? Uh, yes. Move it forward. How's that? Okay. Good. Comfort, baby. Let's go over to Blue Sky, and I will promote that I am doing the thing. Host. Join me and have fun. Join me and have fun. Good. Cook good. Make good food. Be the food boy. Hi, Solar. Delicious food. Delicious food. What you making? I hope it's yummy. I hope it's yummy. I haven't really ever looked at my emotes. Here's a screaming dinosaur. Apparently, it replaced PogChamp with a big dinosaur. That's a choice. I understand why they did, but like, I like this one. I like the kitty. Look at him go. Wow, I've got some delay on this thing, huh? All right. I guess that's normal. It's like crowded. Baked beef with potatoes and carrots. Right on. Oh, hey, there's one for me. Boop. Okay, okay, okay. There's a global. Oh, all right. Surprised what kind of stuff is in global. Just waiting for people to show at this point. Give them a minute. Well, ears. So many ding dang emotes. I don't know who half these people are. But hey. Oh, it's just the one. Just the one. Okay, just a moment. I will be. We're waiting for people anyway. Hi, Lizzie. I'm helping my wife real quick. Waiting for people. Pardon the clicking. I keep muting the mic so personal stuff doesn't come through. It's a button. It makes noise. Is he not working? What is going on? Is that Star Ocean? Does Star Ocean do that? Oh, no. Wait a minute. All right, let's try this. I'm closing her. I'll bring her back. I'll bring her back. We'll force her to reset. I don't know what's going on. Like she stops receiving mic when I launch the game. Okay, that's good. So if I go in the Star Ocean and then I come back. Good. Okay. That happened last time too. She just stopped responding. It was very fun. Very interesting. Love that for me. Okay. Okay. Happy where you're at? There you go. Do you want your computer? No? Okay. All right. Three whole people. Three whole people. That beats no people. I think this is the reason I was thinking of doing a Phasmo. I was thinking I'd do Phasmo as a warm-up real quick or something. But maybe. See if we get people in. I don't know. We don't have that long. It only takes me like 15 minutes, though. What do y'all think? I think I run both games at once. I got a title screen up. Let's see what happens. Screw it. I'm going to see if we can do a warm-up Phasmo. It'll be fun. Quick warm-up Phasmo. Make sure everything's working. Let people show up. It'll be great. I might have to change this, though. Yeah, I'm going to have to change this. That's fine. Watch this. Bloop. Skills. Skills. There's like 3 of you I think might appreciate the stupid BS I've set up, and I want to make sure they're in the room when I do it. So, screw it. I need to put my chat in another spot where I can see it. Sure. There we go. No, that didn't work. That didn't work at all. That was a failure. It was a failure of my UI setup. There we go. Now I can see the everything. Okay, there. Do a warm-up round. I'll do my dailies. Check this out. In this speed run, what do we got? Find a ghost, go crazy, do objectives, Ouija's. Okay. We'll see what we get done. Find a ghost, go crazy, sanity. Well, this usually takes about 15, so we'll see what happens. 30 might be a bit much. I am categorized as Star Ocean. I don't want to be super naughty, but incense. I mean, if anyone's after the Twitch drops, oh, they ended. They ended. I think I can just change the stinking. I can change the category on the run, on the fly. Wow, it would help if anything was workable on my other screen. That just does that. Oh, poopy. I'll figure that out some other time, I guess. There's buttons. There's ways. Edit quick actions. Exit quick. What? Stop raids. Manage goals. Chat history. Nope. Alright, whatever. I'll figure it out later. For now, warm up Phasmo. Here we go. Boom. I'm gonna turn this up so I can hear what the hell I'm doing. Okay. Beep. Blonk. Bloop. We're in Tanglewood. It's cozy. It's easy. Here we go. Bang, bang, bang. I should tell Piggy I'm doing this. He's supposed to be here at some point. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, 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 okay. Wow. I'll bring my buttons real quick. It's been... Well, that was easy. And cards. Cool. 1, 2. See? Quick and easy. I know what I'm doing. 8.6, 8.3, 8 this, 8 that. I'll show you what I can eat. That did not want to work. Oop. Garage is not a hidey hole. Garage is usually a hidey hole. That's different. 9, 10, 9. Boobity boobity boop boop. I heard something. Heard something somewhere. Heard something somewhere. Won't get the board because the board is not here. So whoopsie doo. All right. Cool. That was early. That was an early little spooky scary. It's in the ding-dang bathroom. I hate when it's in the ding-dang bathroom. But alright. Sure. Sure. Let's see if that drove me extra crazy. Not really, actually. That ghost photo sucks, but the game says it counts, so cool, cool, cool. Warm up, Phasmo. Where are my homies? Yeah, you can't even see the ghost. Whatever. Fine. Yeah, no, it's definitely there. Give me money. Ooh. Ugh. Worst room for this. I hate this crap. Okay. This is a very early event, so I'm wondering if that's gonna matter. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the living room because I like to see. There's a hiding spot. That's good to know. It's line of sight, which isn't always ideal. There's a couple, actually. Slap this up like right here. That seems like a good spot. Pop our book down. Jeez, I don't even know. This is the problem with the bathroom, is there's nowhere you can even really see this crap. I always end up in the bathroom. It's always in the ding-dang bathed room. Why? Why must you be in my bathed room? Ugh, whatever. One step at a time, we'll figure it out. Beautiful night. Nice JPEGs, baby. Hell yeah. Okay, we'll just plop that down. Oh, no, it did the weird thing again. Wow, you are an active little bitch. Alright, so I'm thinking, like, Faye immediately. Because it keeps doing shit like that. Lucky me. Love when my mouse freaks out. That's 3 ghost events very quickly. And we're already in hunt space, and I'm still setting up, so we don't like that. What do we got? Well, we got ghost orbs, and I missed it somehow. There we go. Boop. Yeah, that's on the table. Does anything else want to happen for mommy? Whoa! Whoa! Apparently not. Okie dokie. Oh, we've set up... I don't know what a Thay needs. Let's look. Ghost. Thay. Orb writing and dots. That's a fun set that's not happening. Well, now the dots are... The orb's in the hallway. They keep going through the wall, so that's also interesting. Alright, well, let's get back in there and see what's up. Grab this. I'll grab this. Grab my lighter. Let's do a motion sensor. Love that shit. That's always good. Still cold as dick in there. Thanks. Are you there? Are you friendly? Is it safe? Is it scaly?
Elderly individual left hurt.
You do that again for me. Is it safe? Are you... Thank you. Okay. Well. That is not exactly what we expected. It's not a Thay. I don't think it's a mare, because it's acting up when I'm in the room. Mimic is on the table. Okay. Motion sensed. Okay. Is there any other ghost using incense? That's a freebie, but an annoying one. I need this, this, and this. Okie dokie. Is this one open? No. That'd be very helpful. Oh, shit. Nope. Worth a shot, but we have ghost riding. What you touching, homie? Nothing there, nothing there. Nothing here, nothing here. Hello? Alright, we're not getting freezing. Touch something. Oh, shit. I never get that. Cool. Yeah, I'm not getting much of interest with these. Let's go take stock. Gearbox, Ghost Riding, Ghost Orb. If I get rid of Ghost Orb, Mimic is not on the table. It's a mare. That's not what I expected.
Turd after turd after.
A turd after? Alright, so we know what it is. We need video, we need a sound. Alright. Actually does mostly check out, I guess. Problem is, there's not going to be much to record this way. I'm going to have to get hands-on with that, or we're not going to get squat diddly. Okay. That's fine. That is totally fine. Cook that food. Yummy, yummy food will be so good. I'm running off ramen and some Dr. Pepper. How's everyone else doing? Alright, blow up my fire, bitch. I should put the salt, too. I could have gone for the twofer. Nope, there we go. Alright, boom. Alright. Now, if I can get this on video, we're golden. Right. That'll get us 4 videos. That'll get us full... yeah. See, I'm on it. I'm on it. I know what I'm doing. Kinda. Already stepped in one, the bastard. Did learn that if it hunts, this will slow it down, so that's cool. Step in my salt, fool. Got it. Hey. Oh, I missed something. I just need one more sound. Yeah, I like soda too much. I don't think I can cold turkey that shit. I fucking live off it. I guess I don't need this anymore, do I? Go flashlight up the house, I guess. I got nothing else I'm doing. Has to be diet soda or I get icky and no fun, but, you know. Yeah, I can relate to that. I like you, the liquids. I get it. Truly, I do. Mirrors are more powerful in the dark. Mirrors are more powerful in the dark, you see. Okay, so... I'm going to... ditch this here for now. Grab 2 more flashlight. What? Oh, you can't have 2 of the same thing. That's interesting. Okay. Makes sense. Well, no, I've had 2 of the same thing before. I guess because you can do the special button. Oh, no. I'm going to put this one here. Alright. Getting this burning on video would be huge. That'd be a good one. Getting the ghost on video would be a good one. Trying to set up a nice flashlight path so I can see the path to the fuse box in the garage, you see. Not to be confused with the straight rod. Don't want to mix those up. I could go for Sanity 0, I guess, for a free hundo, but it's not necessarily a free hundo. It could be a very dangerous hundo, to be honest. I don't know. Damn. Double damn. That was almost good. Come on, homie. Or do I what? I forgot already. Is that different from paranormal talking? Damn. No, that would be a duplicate. Can't get out, honey. We're doing a job. Keep missing that. It's a shame, because either of those would be really nice. At least the hide is right here. Do it, I guess. Done with video. Please say I'm done with that. Shit. Shit. Okay, so I keep getting paranormal talking, which is not great for me. I need, one more sound. One more sound in the go. Oh no, yeah, we've got a perfect game. I can just get one more sound that's not a duplicate. The problem with that is it would basically have to be at hunting at this point, so I'm not excited. I mean, I could try to... More powerful in the dark, so let's turn on some fucking lights. Bitch hates lights. Okay. On full record here. Got two hidey holes lined up. I've got the thing in my hands. Blow out the candle and I'll leave, homie. Oh, that works too, bye. Thank you. Laughing is not talking. That should do her. That should be a clean run. Hitting the button. Let's get out of here. Let's go. This concludes the warm-up Phasmo. I hope we all had fun.
Welcome back.
Ding, ding, ding. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Not bad. For a quickie. Alright. And hop back over here. Go back to our prep screen. Hello. That was fun. That was fun. That was fun. That was fun, right? I need to go into studio mode. Where's the studio mode? But there it is. Because I need to go over to game when no one's looking. Yep. And I need to change the capture to Star Ocean. Aha! And I can leave studio mode. I'm a genius. All right, this is your last chance to file in for the fun event. I will be right back. Grace! All right. Welcome back. I'm back. Hi, Spritzy. Welcome to the party, Spritzy. Ooh. I can hit buttons when I'm not focused on the window. That's probably not ideal. Oh, good. I just lost my USB device for my controller. All right, cool. We're having fun. We're setting up a great time here. I'll figure this out. Don't you worry. Okay, we're golden. Everything's working. Everything is working. All right. Are we ready to transition into Star Ocean now? With music only you guys can hear. Don't worry about it. My wife is just gonna be like, "What the hell are you doing?" Don't worry. It's only kind of embarrassing. No, I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna have fun. Okay. I worked on this last night. I set up a thing because I figured not everyone's gonna catch every stream, and I'm a big dork. So what if Sonic Adventure? So without further ado, here we go. Hey there, I'm Sarah the Otter Cat. One day, I decided to make it my mission to subject as many people as possible to Star Ocean: The Last Hope, because the game is ridiculous, and I thought it'd be funny. Thus, JRPG Wednesday was born! Last time, we took to the stars with the crew of the Calnus, one of the ships in Earth's first manned fleet to colonize distant planets. On our way to the planet Eos, the ship's warp tunnel got all messed up by some funky translucent meteor. Next thing you know, the Calnus' landing on Eos was more like a collision course. After crashing, brave dumb baby man Edge Maverick fought some giant bugs with the power of a cutting blade and a mysterious symbol on his hand that literally nobody seems to have noticed yet, including Edge himself. This is extremely in character. Seeing Edge be the only crew member to not get completely destroyed by a big space ant, the captain of the Calnus ordered Mr. Maverick to investigate the landing site of a sister ship that wasn't returning communications. Joined by his childhood Raimi for reasons literally summed up as, "I was the best archer in space school," the two set out to find the crashed vessel and eventually found a wounded survivor. He told the pair of a meteor shard they'd taken aboard their ship to investigate the crash site offshore. Everyone on board had gone crazy and turned on each other, and he warned that the rock was the cause. Homeboy then up and died. Edge and Raimi turned around to witness the arrival of our third party member, the Eldarian, not a Vulcan, Phase, who distracted everyone involved just long enough for the survivor's fresh corpse to dissolve into a weird boiling mess, which then reformed into some sort of spooky ghost hermit crab. Anyway, we beat the shit out of that and reclaimed the meteor shard that definitely didn't drive anyone crazy or turn them into monsters. Don't worry, we put it in space Tupperware. It's like normal Tupperware, but safer, and in space. Nobody noticed that the entire giant crashed spaceship had vanished, and as it had also dissolved into a boiling blue mist of monster goo. The not Vulcans set up a temporary base, and our commanding officers ordered us to train Phase. I'm sure he'll be nothing if not a reliable and extremely long-term party member. Well, back to it! Did I mention that I'm doing it live? We enjoy that? Did we enjoy my stupid... Imagine if I didn't stutter. Maybe next time the day will come and then everyone will owe me $6,000. Oh, now my controller's not working again. Awesome! Awesome! I should replace that cord. She got me a new cord. I'm just lazy. Beep boop, beep boop, beep boop. There we go. We're golden. Loading game. Loading the game. I could have loaded the game earlier, but I didn't want everyone to get blared by sound the second I started it, because I don't know how loud it's going to be half the time. Star Ocean does what it wants. The opening movie's loud as crap, and then the game itself is like, eh. So, full confession, I don't know exactly what our next goal is. They kind of just said, train the boy, and then threw us loose. So I'm assuming what we need to do is step outside. That would be my guess. I guess we just go outside. Let's go touch grass and start there. And if that works, cool. And if not, I don't know, I'll go find Captain Guy again, see what the hell he has to say. Maybe he'll throw me a bone. For all we know, the game's like, take nap. Depth of field looks like a fucking loading screen. That's really funny. Calnus is in repairs. Can I go to the Calnus yet? Is that allowed? Is that allowed? Get the run button. The run fast button. The go zoom zoom. Yo, shit is wrecked. Is it still wrecked? Oh. They just finished constructing the bridge north of the base. Okay, well, I guess that's where we're going. Go north of the base. Good call on who to talk to on my part, I guess. All right, up we go. Up we go. Oh, yeah, look at that. It's really subtle. I don't think I ever would have found it, actually. I'm going to make this a little louder on my end. Can you guys hear okay? Oh, that's just another loading zone. God, this was probably a nightmare on PS3. I don't even remember. I don't remember this part of the game at all. I don't remember the base existing. I don't remember the ship sticking out the side of it. Is that a JPEG or is that a model? I can't really tell. I think it's a model. It could be either. Kind of awkward, whatever it is. No reason it would be a model. Hi, bird. I kill this crab. None of you can stop me. Who am I playing as? Oh boy! I almost stabbed him in the booty butt. Oh, they're dead. Well, that was... Okay, so sound effects are loud and music is quiet. And voices are quiet. And now FaZe is better at beating it. So we're doing good. Good start. Good start. Well, don't worry. It seems that someone may have clipped it. And if not, I can go clip it later, probably. I can figure that out. Character... Wait, what was I doing? I was going to fix the volumes because they're drunk. Okay. Okay, BGM volume... I like hearing music. I'm sorry. Let's try that. I like the tunes. Anything over here? Besides an angry bug chasing me? Uh-huh, you can't catch me, Mr. Bug. You despawned. I don't know where he is. The bug no longer exists. Oh, he's over there. Good for him. Okay, now I can turn this down a bit. Just the battle sounds kind of blew my ears out. I'm like, okay. Let's test this. That seems a little better balanced. Let's find out what happens when I hit the button. Okay, maybe their voice is a little too quiet, but that's fine. We'll tweak it. I thought I did this last time, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I just coped. The slimes are disgusting. What the slimes are. They're gross motherfuckers. I don't know. They're some of the grossest slimes I've ever seen. We'll try slightly louder. We'll keep messing with it. This is like the first step of every game I play. I'm surprised I didn't do more of it last time, but hey. That's ominous over there. What do you think that's about? Or crabs. Well, do you think crabs count as bugs? I should really look at that. Hey, I found the free move button. Oh, never mind. There's not a free move button. I'm thinking tails. I was just holding square, thinking, yeah, this'll work.
I'm so glad everyone's safe.
Raimi, we just got here. How are you half out of MP already? Okay. Hell's name are you spamming, girl? I gotta go see what the Urple is. What's the Urple? This chest is cursed with dark energy and cannot be opened. Are you okay? But look at it. It's so radiant and exciting. Alright. Mr. Crab wants to go. Mr. Crab wants to go. I'll go against Mr. Crab. I'll fuck up Mr. Crab. Let's party. See this bug? No, you don't. Oh, I love when they're just barely out of reach. That's funny. There we go. Oh, okay. I think we're overpowered.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring him on. Now that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Now he can edge even harder. Yeah, well, that joke will never die. His name is fucking Edge. Wait, what is this setup? Oh, that goes down to where we were. Well, then what's new exactly? I'm not sure what we're doing differently here, but I'll explore. I'll explore.
Here we go.
Hi, big boy. Just found a random pickled plum. Don't worry about it. Yes, dear. Like it? Go. You can't touch me. I'm over here now. And now I feel better. What about dead bugs? I'm doing. I know. Oh my god, Face sucks. I can see why I never bothered with him much in the past. Don't worry about it.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring him up.
Insect blade.
Give some help to everyone.
Alright, I'm trying to get to a spot where I can see what might be different up here, because we've been here. And they wanted me to go this way again, so I guess we're going this way again. I think I need to talk to Piggy for a second. Give me a second. What's up?
Now's the time to strike.
Come on. Rising flame. Rising flame. Now you'll see what I'm made of.
Wonderful. I'm so glad
Now
everyone's
you'll
safe.
see what I made of.
There's a thing over there, which is cave again. We've been in cave. There's a bridge that gets to some new areas to the north. Did that. Okay, now what? Fuck you. Oh, well, I get to see my glowy plants again. I like the glowy plants. They make me happy. Bats!
Just keep your cool and we'll be fine.
Oh my god. Shit, I fucked him up. Oh! Oh! I forgot that could happen. Right on, it's the first time that's occurred.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's safe.
Ass shop. Oh, it's efficient. Saves us a loading screen. Alright. That doesn't respawn, that makes me sad. Not much has.
We don't have time to
Killing bugs, because that's what you're supposed to do with this guy. Lifting it, 'cause that's what he's actually good at. Ugh.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's safe.
Boy, if I need insect legs for anything, I'm golden. Oh, they don't even want to fight me anymore. They're like, yeah, no, this is doomed. Doo-doo. What if I just start backflipping instead of fighting? Oh, well, that's why. Can you not target the same thing that Edge targets? He just kind of kills it.
Don't use that.
I smash it with a rock. Oh, you get an XP bonus for that, though. That's interesting. And I got green. I forget what green is for. Is it skill kill? No, because... Or maybe it's because you survived an ambush, you get the green, because I got 2 of it. Okay, then. Okay, then. It looks like electrical cords.
It looks like electrical cords and tastes like electrical cords.
Uh-huh.
I am done talking.
Ow. My knee. You smash it with a thing.
Smashed it with not an electrical cord.
Thanks for not smashing it. I just ran into a bug. You know, Spike worked so well last time, let's do it again.
Let's make the most of our
Fuck
training.
it. Get spiked. It's funny. Aw.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring them on.
Okay, so I just get an extra 2 SP every fight now. That's a lot right now. That's cool. That's awesome. I wonder if that's party or individual. It must be party. I am. Oh, hey, we got followed. Thank you, follow person. Portal Master, 64. Alright, we did a big loop for very little reason, but don't worry about it. I guess we'll just take a nap. I don't know. Sure. And we'll go see if I can figure out what the heck I missed, because I don't know where to go. I thought I chose a very smart time to wrap up last time. It's like, hey, we're between steps. It's like, all right, yeah, but we're between steps. What's the next one? The commander already talks to me, though. It's fine. I'll take a nap. I love naps. Pick a pod. Any pod. This pod. I love being a pod person. Let's pod it up. Snork me, me, me. Me snork, monk, snork, snork me. Okay. You're the tour guy. We don't need you. What, baby?
Give up. It's supposed to be an easy thing. I know. I'm so
Oh, she needs insect legs. And she has a reward if I give her insect eggs. You know you're in good hands when a girl's like, I need bug parts, and you give her bug parts, and she's like, thanks, baby. Why am I saying yes to this? Says guy who literally threatened to take a bug's leg home with him. That's why. He's worried he's going to lose all his bug legs. She gave me a blueberry. Edge was disappointed. What? Is he doing something silly behind me? Okay.
There it is.
Ugh.
The same reaction every time I look at it. Oh, yeah, I know. Funny stuff. Oh, you tried.
Okay, now she wants eggs. Oh, she needs 8 eggs, and I don't have 8 eggs. What are you going on about, dude, man? Okay. Exploration, work of genius, meh, meh, meh. I don't give a shit. Yay! You were talking about item creation. You're another portal to nowhere. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I go see fucking... Is it time to go see Welch? Is she in this room? Can I go see Welch now? No, this isn't the Welch room. This is the Sleepy Time Junction. Do I want to know what you guys are doing?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Someone disappeared.
By the way, I'm coming here. did like a shepherd's pie filling, but I did like ground beef. That
Doesn't even say where he might be. Okay.
not ground beef, but it's
I'm just supposed to help people around the base. Is that where we're at? Is it side quest tutorial time?
that nice.
Okay, you got nothing new to add.
I did. These birds had orange paint.
Okay. I kind of do that.
Yellow to it.
Ugh.
I could probably add one like a bell pepper. But I don't want to do bell pepper.
Oh. So now I have no ship. Okay. Oh, apparently I had to hand over the ship.
Come.
Okay. Is that what you wanted? Sorry, I'm used to edging. I'm not used to finishing. Sorry.
These plugs work.
Yes, I'm using them all the time.
I'm using them right now, too.
Left,
I
2.
worry that the
Right, 1. Clear.
Story time.
Steady.
That's when the best jokes happen. Right now, I ain't got ship.
Good.
Good.
Wow, they repaired the Calnus.
Yeah, they were doing that.
Wow, it was trashed. And they fixed it in such a short
That means
time.
they had that guy programmed to say that bridge was built just in case you did what I did. Go outside before handing over the thing.
This way.
Just, yeah, you can go there now. Yes. Look, it's the ship we were already in. It's so impressive that it looks the same. No, yeah, that is basically the same, isn't
The
it?
design concept behind the warp drives we use in our ships actually comes from Eldar. The Eldarians' technology far surpasses our own.
So we stole it.
They have a warp technique employing subspace bubbles, one we couldn't implement. We had to use wormholes. What you see before you now are the fruits of that technology made real.
We couldn't
The
blow
hull may not have
bubbles.
changed much, but under the hood, she's like a ship from several centuries in our future.
Amazing.
It's slightly brighter in
Mr.
here.
Maverick, from this moment on, you're the captain of the new Calnus.
Don't fuck it up.
Me? A captain?
You've handled your duties thus far admirably. I recommended you myself.
You didn't get your shit wrecked by a
Official orders should
bug.
arrive soon.
But
But that's
Now,
exactly what I
let me brief
wanted.
you on your mission.
Oh.
The new duties of SRF-003 Calnus and her crew are as follows.
Kill more bugs.
Investigate unexplored planets within warp range, as well as participate in the search for the lost nebula. Miss Sionji, you'll be Mr. Maverick's first officer. Support him well.
Sir,
Oh yeah, she has a last name.
The planet Eldar. You will also be a part of the mission.
me too? Sir?
Oh? I thought the three of you were already a team.
Yes, sir. We are indeed a team.
We did a lap around the planet.
I happily accept your orders, sir.
Listen, Mr. Maverick, I know exactly what you want to say. But since the warp incident, the SRF has been severely
That's what
crippled.
you want to say. You are a big
All the
baby.
other officers of captain class are injured and unable to handle the duties. I, too, have my hands full overseeing this base. Unfortunately, I can't even provide you with an adequate crew.
Insult into their face.
This will be a difficult mission carried out by a select few.
You just get these two pussies. I'm sorry.
Right now, you're the only one capable of leading it.
What are you, level 8?
You accept.
Alright, it'll have to work. It's literally what you wanted an hour ago.
I'm only standing here today because of a string of lucky coincidences.
And a bug murderer 20,000.
I know I didn't earn this through my own ability.
You murdered a bug.
Raimi, FaZe, I'll be counting on the two of you.
Of course. I'll do whatever I can to help Edge. Together, we can do this.
She's gonna help Edge.
I stand with Raimi, Edge. I promise to be of service. I still have so much to learn from you, after all.
Like what edging means. Why do we keep saying that?
Anything to learn from me, but thank you, Raimi, Faze.
Creepy doll squad assemble.
I am honored to accept the position of Calnus Captain, sir. Very good. You may launch whenever your preparations are complete.
I should probably find the
I
missing
pray
dude
for
first.
success. Sir,
Preparations of finding a missing dude and getting that lady her eggs. Eggs. Oh, that means we have to do something really annoying too, but we'll wait a minute. I am being giggled at by my... Hold on! I'm here. I found an Oreo. It's golden. I think we can go talk to Welch now. Everyone's favorite character. Oh, yep. Here we go. Let's be
Hey.
annoying.
Welch!
Yes, sir! Here I am, blooming as a beautiful flower. Keep the garden shears away or I'll slap ya.
Do you think she had a
You've
script
already
or she
been
just
contacted,
rants?
Right? This is our new Eldarian crewman, Faze.
How much he just been ignored.
What?
Say
You're
rants.
just gonna ignore my joke? When did you develop such advanced ignoring skills?
The second I met
Pleasure to
you.
make your acquaintance. I am Faze Shifa Beleth, an Eldarian.
Look at this, even the rookie is completely unfazed.
He is phased, though.
Kids, I'll be damned.
You could try to be at least slightly businesslike when you meet new people, Welch.
Give them grape
What
juice.
is it?
It's a little late to be surprised, pal. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
What?
So, you're one of these aliens, huh? You don't look very different from us at all. I thought you'd be all like, you know...
Purple. Ew.
Give me the tasty human meat.
I'm sorry, Faze. She means well, I think.
No.
No, it's all right. I'm quite used to false preconceptions.
Like that I'm a slime monster. It's the bathing rituals, sorry.
Just kidding. Sorry, fake. Wait, Fade, was it? Anyway, fail.
It's Faze.
Right, fame. So, about that monster? Truth is, those things are actually Earthlings, you know.
Earthlings?
After just 2 more molting seasons, Edge will be turning into one of those. So be
Ew.
careful you don't get eaten, okay? Ta-ta for now.
She's
Come
full
on,
of
Welch.
shit.
Are you trying to traumatize him?
backs away slowly.
Just so you know, that's her idea of a joke, okay? Of course, I understand.
You aren't going to molt and eat me. They're Earthlings. That's why they're all over this planet that's not Earth. Hey, can I do this stuff now? Ooh. Inventing recipes. I'll figure it out.
What's that? Let me see, let me see.
Oh, yeah, she just has a big hand stick.
Yo, people, how's it going? I can tell an awesome recipe is on the way.
I'm gonna invent stuff. It's gonna be awesome. I'm really good at alchemy. Go.
Show me the good stuff, huh?
Fine pace indeed.
I've invented pasta. Delicious pasta.
All right.
Iron protector.
I've
Well,
done it.
whatever helps us get through the day.
Protector or protractor?
It's protector.
Nice.
Protractors for another. Out of ideas.
Well, we got armor and a bow and pickled plumber.
This'll be.
You know,
How much help you think this'll be?
I can actually make that. All right.
How much help
You
you think this'll be?
Can't edge without a hand stick. I guess Spritz does it weird. Spritz does it really weird.
You get an E for effort.
Needs the extra reach, apparently. Ugh. Shell armor.
Are you satisfied with this, kids?
Okay.
I can tell an awesome recipe is on the way.
God, how much do you think you're paid to make your voice crack on purpose?
Wanna make something?
I don't make a bunch of things. There's this thing, which is specifically you've been handed the shit to make it, so make it, dumbass, so sure.
Well, pretty crafty, ain't ya?
Really just added a step for her to say one-liners, huh? Yay, I now have a strong kill bow. Wait, sword. Shell armor. It is normal armor, but good at shell. Sure.
I wonder if I'd be any good at this. Go on, take it already. Figure it out soon. I don't have all day.
Welch, I really don't think you do anything else in your entire
Already know
life.
what you wanna make?
Sure, make rice. Delicious rice.
Don't strain yourself too hard.
Don't smack me with that fucking thing, you freak.
Good, don't you think? Already
I
know
have so many alchemy recipes. Are you jealous? No, it was 0. It was none.
Balls.
I've made stuff. I also got...
Somebody is creative to make not only pickled plum pudding, maybe alchemy's just a bit young.
I just got her stupid... Really? Where is it? No, it's in here, apparently. It's in here. It said it's in here. There you go. Any form its user desires, Spritz. Oh, the things you could do with a giant hand. I want to equip stuff because I made toys. Sure. Yeah, we're not killing things fast enough. You're right. You're right. Let's just murder them instantly. I don't even know what to say beyond that. Just, yep. You're going to die. Cool. Alright, so we're missing a dude. I suppose we should save so we don't have to go through all that Welch again. It's kind of a weird little hiccup on his giddy up there. Yeah, pets from afar. That's what I was thinking. Farnsworth. Why do I know that? Dr. Farnsworth.
Famous action god.
So, if I were a missing person, I think I would show up on the map, personally. Who drops eggs? Fuck, that's annoying. I hate that shit. Okay, do you? Sometimes. Do you? No. Do you? No. Alright, we're killing a lot of bugs. Just basic bitch ants. Giant ant. There's X over here, right? Thank God. I'm trying to think like a side quest designer. Where would I put one person lost in the woods? Thank you for that input, Chris, but I'm also thinking maybe something else?
We can use this.
Lemon. Space lemon. Can I zoom in, or is it just going to be like 8 million yards away no matter what? I found the auto run button. Forgot that was a thing. Alright, we're still looking for a guy. Who drops eggs? Someone rich in this economy. Thank you, Solar. You're not wrong. If I just, okay. No, it's cool. I wasn't up to anything. You guys...
So glad everyone's safe.
It's fine.
Daily training is the key.
Daily, I showed up. I showed up and got better at beating. That's why I didn't get anything done. Sure, man. Looking for a dude who's lost in the woods. I'm hoping he shows up on my mini-map or I'm gonna cry. Give me your children.
I must say, that wasn't very challenging.
That's your leg. It's not your children. It does rhyme with what I'm after. Maybe up in that weird-ass corner would be a good spot. I'd hide stuff in weird-ass corners all the time. He said to find a guy who went missing. All right.
Come on, let's do this.
Again, I really didn't need to kill them faster. I think we're doing good on the murder speed here. We can't even get the bonus board filled with stuff because they're dying so fast I can't do anything. Well, actually, wait. I have an idea. I have an idea on that. Yeah. We're going to have to say fuck it to Mr. Faze for now. We need something faster. That's fine for this round. Waste your time, Raimi.
I must say, that wasn't very challenging.
Right. I'm surprised I didn't just do an ambush. Go. There we go. Skill only finish. That'll help offset their spam slightly. Just stand there. I'll just stand there. Okay.
C-Tech, right?
Yes. Why? What are you looking for?
First, I want to make sure it's not me.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring them on.
Is your phone not charging? Have we entered the realm of oh no? Hey, an egg!
My phone's just a little picky, and it could be your plug.
Yeah.
But that was my first go.
Items. I would like to see if I have egg. I have 8 egg. We're done with egg. Okay, now we just gotta find dude. Surely we'll never need another egg in our lives. Hey, dude, are you hiding back here? No. Did this open up again? No. Okay, they don't respawn. Good to know. First, the map just has 2 states. That one's open too, right? That looks like one I could miss, but I didn't. Okay. So, I guess we can look through the cave. That'd be a spot. I don't know. You're poking me.
Sorry.
You're poking me. Now I'm gonna kill your family.
Okay.
It said the boy wandered off. I don't think he's on the base, but I don't know. We'll do a lap. It don't hurt any. I just punched that guy to death.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring them on.
Hit him in the jaw so hard he died. Now I gotta feed him to pigs.
I don't know it's working. You know, it could be a broken cord. Yeah, because this one.
Don't have time to play around. Now you'll see what I can make.
Damn it, 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 damn it. I just wanted to join it. I felt left out.
Oh no, appreciate you. A little bit of chanting will do my goblin spirits well, but my cord's dead. And here I was coming in the hero with the best cord ever, and instead I come in with the opposite.
I'm sorry.
Your cord is dying.
My cord is dying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. We both use it constantly.
Here we go.
It charges slow.
It charges slow and occasionally doesn't charge.
I haven't had that issue, but okay.
Come on, now's our chance.
I got a bag. They in charge.
Wonderful.
Okay, that's
Everyone's safe.
protection seeds.
I think it's just me being sour grapes.
Protection seeds. Protection seeds are not in here. Protection seeds. Permanent boost to guard. Probably the guy who's in their face all the time and has no guard. What the fuck? Yeah, eat that, Edge. You're the melee man.
You have all these dips and crap on the outside. Like that plastic.
Okay, no man
Can't tell.
here.
It's like-
This never served the purpose. Is there a man over here? Hello, is there a
You
man?
know what? Much as I hate it.
You look like a man? No man. That keeps happening.
This tremendous.
Oh, there's a bug in my face. I wasn't looking.
Just keep your
I will not keep my cool. I will keep using Rising Blade in hopes I will fill my butt. Hey, multi-enemy. That's cool.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring 'em on.
Bonus money. That's actually slightly worthwhile right now. So yeah, Spritzy wasn't here last time for that. He was like, that bonus board seems really mean. Well, I found the upside of the bonus board. It carries between fights. It is slightly mean, but it's also persistent. So when you lose it, it hurts. But like, if you're good, you have it forever. So now I get that little recovery every fight. I don't care about you guys. Go away. Might fight a bat, though. I think I slipped. Well, never mind. He swooped so bad, we both missed.
I'll get up on him.
Can't do that. Looking for a guy, looking for a guy. Maybe he's in that hole. That's what she said? Well, that doesn't exist yet, so that's interesting. I guess we're killing this.
We must make the most of our
Just keep your
There we go. I think killing them with a critical is the one that boosts XP,
I must become
which is easier. Oh, double blindsides enabled. I don't know what that means. All right. I've learned a new trick, Captain. Maybe he fell down there. Maybe he drowned. Unfortunate. Maybe he also turned into strange goo. A lot of people have. Maybe he's in here. So far, no one's in. Wait. Wait. Why are you staring at the flowers? Oh, what do we do, homies? What do we do? Do we flirt with her, the flowers, or really drop the ball and go for both? Hey, baby, let's run this by you. Let's run this by the girl in the room, all right? The girliest girl I know. Okay? Listen to me. Listen to me. She said these flowers are beautiful, and he's staring at her. Your options are, they really are beautiful flowers, you're really beautiful, or you're both so beautiful. Which would you rather hear? You're both? All right, you and Spritz both said that. We're gonna try it. We're not doing this with a guide. Oh, that's actually kind of smooth. There we go. It's like each one makes the other prettier. Oh, she didn't like it though. She takes it means that she's not as pretty as the flowers. Oh, he wants them to come together. All right, so I think we just lost her character ending forever. Because that's the kind of game we're playing. Your game was bad. Sorry. To be fair, you got to think like it's being delivered by an anime protagonist. That really shits it up. I mean, if I was that pissed, I'd just go reload. I don't care. I don't know how perfect it is. I know that if you have a walkthrough, it takes at least 3 playthroughs to get them all. And when I beat the game back on the PS3, I got none of them. This blows. There he goes. Like, 100 hours in this thing. Got no character endings. It's not easy. It's kind of a piece of shit. I didn't think it would be right, but, you know, I had 2 votes saying do it, so I'm like, all right, guys. Not least of all because, like, it is Edge. It is Edge.
All I'm doing now is, like, move the TV in. But I'm moving stuff like that.
So here's the thing. The design wouldn't be rude if it was optional. And it is optional, like, if not for achievements, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And fuck it, we're committing. So, as a cute optional thing, like, oh, it's a little Easter egg. If you really stick to somebody, you can, like, get to know them well. You can get their secret ending. That's cool. Unfortunately, there's trophies for every single one. Achievements now. So the character endings are mandatory for 100%, but then again, with how the V-Stereo works on the PC version, so is beating the game 8 times or cheesing it. So...
I must say, that wasn't really challenging.
Merlin is fighting Chris. It's not that you're too pure a goo, it's that you're... Oh my god. Okay, hold on. I'll touch on... Fine, are you sure? Okay. It's all good. It's not that you're too pure. It's that you're looking at a situation where you can either compliment someone directly or compare them to something. And the comparison is just his comparison. You're both beautiful is fine. It's the fact that Edge took it to, you know, you each make the other beautiful, and that left the room for, what, so I'm not pretty enough without the flowers? And then he kept digging that hole and making it worse because he's Edge Maverick. He's a dumb baby man. So there's not no world where you couldn't have sold that, but we have to remember we're playing as a man who is Rizless on default because he is a JRPG protagonist. And they are, as a whole, brain dead. Like, you gotta think, like, what is a brain dead moron the least likely to screw up? Like, for all we know, the right answer was just to compliment the flowers and agree with her and call it good. We don't know. It's Edge Maverick. He's a dumbass. Like, you could have been like, you're both beautiful. But, you know, you're the most beautiful of all. Alright, fuck you. I keep hitting the wrong button, and I'm just kind of getting smacked in the face.
Wonderful. I'm so
Not really. I compare thee to a summer's eve, unnecessary and bad for my microbiome.
Daily training.
That seems like his level of game, yeah. That seems about right. That was from Liz. Oh, I still haven't found this dude. Oh, don't make me Google it. Don't make me look up side quests for Star Ocean 4. Maybe he's behind the rocks I can never get in. I can come back eventually, apparently, because there's a lot of stuff you cannot do until you get, like, robot guy. Spoiler, there's a robot guy. Oh, I just found an insect egg. I could just grab them off the ground. If he's on the Calnus, I riot.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring 'em on.
Beat boot, what's the scoop? There's nothing there. Ugh. Alright, we gotta stick with Faze because we're trying to kill bugs specifically, and this is the bug planet, so we're gonna bug everybody with the bugs. He really hates bugs, he has trophies for killing bugs.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Alright. I don't see anyone on the map. I am like getting close to be like, let's just fucking look it up. I don't know. Because I have done most of a lap, but there is still one place I haven't been. As irritating as it kind of is, there's one place we need to go still. Yes, up your butt. Better go up your butt. Oh. Just fight 50 times. Yeah, okay. Edge has one for like 3,000, but sure. Keep trying to use square to guard. I don't think square is anything.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's safe.
I always use PS these PS buttons because I switch between Super Nintendo and Xbox controllers enough that it's like that's the only consistent one. Liz says it is a good point. Have we checked our butthole? I haven't. Fine. Oh yeah, the doll parts. Yeah, she was gonna do
Yeah, which is perfectly fine. I just went.
my mother would be proud. So you can juggle them in the air, but if they hit the ground, you can't hit them until they get up. Eh.
I'm so glad everyone's safe.
Daily training is the key.
Daily training is the key to getting big and strong. I'm level 7 off bitch baby bugs. Alright, let's go through this fucking cave. That's my last real idea, is to check the coastline. Otherwise I got nothing. We got over here. Over here ain't got squat. See, nothing. Oh well, it's got this.
We can use this.
Free candy. I can't imagine it being on the base. I thought they specifically said he went missing in the woods. I could be making that up. I don't know. You could be right. I could swear it said he was off in the forest and went missing. Maybe I made that up in my head. I don't know. Look at all this. Look at all this free shit I got though. Yummy, yummy. I'm so over leveled. I was gonna put this on hard mode, but the game says I have to beat it to do that. I apparently ran out of dash juice. That's interesting. I didn't know that was a thing. I don't even know what that would mean.
Nuts. Here's a nutty thing.
I must say, that wasn't really
Once
challenging.
you got that, you have a needle that's stapling with the chip wire. That's still back there. I still have one.
Oh, I did
In a
that.
box. Never open. It's like that big. Probably a little taller, probably not as wide. You don't know what to do, but it exists. I know. It's not a particular branch. Hear me out. Build it all the way up.
Oh, worst case, I found the eggs.
Because essentially,
We'll try Spritz's theory before I start googling shit. I am more than a little irritated.
shoot. That was my first thought that came to me with 0 seconds before. But it's this new fish off. What else to do?
Running. I didn't run out of dash juice. I accidentally hit RT. The forbidden you don't dash no more button. The button where you go for a stroll. Uh-oh, he touched my ass.
We were too careless.
Yes, I have been here before. I had to do a big circle because there's no other way back. That's why I'm dashing like crazy to get out.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring 'em on.
Just trying to get back now. Oh, don't question how long Edge can edge. He can edge harder than you can imagine. We have not begun to see this boy edge. First part is I do need to fight more bugs because I'm using... Ugh, okay. How does a line work? It's very difficult because Edge takes the lead and just kills them. And I think FaZe has to at least get a fucking hit in, and he just sucks.
Must say, that wasn't really challenging.
I did learn that the progress on like kill 100 bugs with him does not carry between playthroughs. Like your trophies carry, but not the progress for any that you haven't earned. Which is ridiculous, but whatever.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's
Again,
safe.
we're not going for 100%. There's been no point in my time playing Star Ocean 4. I'm like, you know what I want to do? I mean, I'm playing Star Ocean again for fun, but part of it's to subject people to it because I think it's funny. But also, you know, it is a fun game. It's just a very long game. But for 100%, this is your life for a while. Like, it's like a 400 or 500 hour effort, like Disgaea tier of 100%ing it. Is it Disgaea good? It's less interesting. You say so. If it makes you feel better, I do have other things I can do for JRPG Day that when I got near the end of this, I was going to start polling what people wanted. So. Huh? Because we haven't done anything hardly. Alright, we're looking for a missing guy. We're following Spritzy's notion. Is he on the base somewhere? Is it this loser? No. Is he in the boxes? Did Chris just die? Just calls her the alien. Spritz wins. He was right here. He was literally right there. Like 10 feet away. Or I thought, oh, she was in the lab or something, wasn't she? Okay. We'll find her. Can I deliver any orders? I have enough rice. I get that delicious party SP. Farms aren't very interesting to watch, though, is the problem. Yes, Faze will be a great help to me. Is anyone else around here? Okay. Oh, he tried to do the kitty and he could not. Alright, I don't think there's anything else of note in here at the moment. Talked to you.
Problem is, I'm pretty sure he's not here. Got pretty pissed at me and essentially.
I got more berries.
Alright. Yeah. Oh! I put that in a pot. It's the map. Not easy.
I got a recipe. Okay. Individual bones. Okay, whatever. I gotta find this airy bitch, and I gotta take a sweet nap, and then I guess we'll go to space? Are we ready for space? Do we enjoy space? Is there anyone in here I need to talk to still? Oh yeah, it was you, wasn't it?
All right, let's keep this
We leveled up by finding a man. What the hell does that say? Swang. I can't read that. Dwayne. Dwayne. I can't read what it says. I'm too blind. Well, I guess I just got smooched and or blowjobbed. We'll never know.
Usually I get one or the other and never so.
What is a blowjob but a smooch on your dick?
It's just the Frenchman's way.
Wow, that's intense.
Some of us like to be formal when we say hello. And you know, statistically, the penis is cleaner than the hand. But I don't give fingers.
See.
Present company exclude.
What?
Segue into blissful night sleep. And it was all a dream.
Doing my best over here. Oh, you're going down 10 inches? Wow, okay. Wow.
First 14 inches are going to be the hardest for you. That's what she said.
Uh-huh.
Before she perforated her.
Oh no. Alright, we gotta go to the boat. It's time to go on our space boat. Coat to coat. That was a fun camera moment. Wee! 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 The what?
The button machine.
Button machine. Oh my god, I thought you said butt machine.
Yeah. I'm the butt machine. Butt machine.
Spritz thinks the next planet is foxes.
Butt machine.
Oh, you can decide who sleeps together. Well, there we go. We don't want it to be inappropriate. We'll get yelled at.
Oh yeah. I was gonna put that closet up there. I'm just gonna hear it. Currently, a whole bunch of open space in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it had litter box.
There was a litter box in there that they like. I should have just thrown out. I didn't realize you could just throw them out yet.
You'll use it in the near future.
But Milo would get locked in there and.
It's sitting on top of the breeze.
What is that?
It's ready for
Oh, this is the
You're gonna want floor space
battle sim.
and
Okay.
The only things that could get knocked over would be tonight. But on top of the ship.
All right.
Could be close to the cage.
We're downloading. She wishes they had a bath. That then we could have an anime bath scene. We kind of do anyway.
It also has and it'd be whatever.
Monster jewels.
Yeah, at the very least, not bad.
Huh. I guess that's why bosses are so hard to get.
Got to segue stuff. Your cat's not. Okay, they might be nice for me.
Okay.
I just wanna.
Interesting.
Going in with the cat, I want to follow you.
Ooh, that one's good.
It's very good. Always underlined. Be here all day. That would be a fun.
Yay! Stuff happens. Oh, but it makes us dumber. I mean, it's fucking Edge. Do we care if he's dumber?
Yeah.
Not as little as we got when we got one.
No, that's. But this is still icky. What I saw looked like it.
Traveling to somewhere. Here we go.
That's unfair. Yeah, him as
Main engine ports connected. Well, how does the captain's chair feel?
It hurts my butt.
So, this is how Crow sees the world.
Oh yeah, your brother that's super important.
Being a captain means
Sitting in a
have to
big
take
boy chair.
responsibility for an entire ship, an entire crew.
Oh, Bunny followed me. Thank you, Bunny.
It's a heavy responsibility.
Oh, don't start already, Edge. Come on, I thought we had a
Crow
while.
bears this burden every day of his life.
His name is Edge.
Buck up, Edge.
Mhm.
Look, you're one step closer to Crow now.
You're one step closer to maximum edging.
Yeah, I guess so.
been so long.
Besides, we three comprise the entire crew of the
Going
company.
against-
There wasn't really a known
Now that you
term
mention
as
it, I
much
guess we
back
do.
then. 'Cause remember, this was
listen,
PS3. This
don't
was
let
like over
this
10
get
years
to you.
ago.
Just be yourself, okay?
Thanks, Raimi.
it.
You okay,
One
Mike?
day, I'll be able to bear this responsibility properly. I swear it.
Responsibility of being the
Star
edgiest
Ocean,
boy I
here
can.
we come.
He said the thing.
That's the thing!
Likewise, ready to depart.
All right. Calnus, engage!
Yes, sir.
That's not gonna steam. Oh, that's okay. I like a year ago or something, 6 months ago, something, was in a voice chat with Yuri and Alex said she went to her friend's house and he had a PS5, and I thought she was lying because I forgot the PS5 actually exists. I genuinely was like, that's not real. You're fucking with me. He's like, no, it's been out for years. I'm like, wait a minute. Eventually, reality caught up with me. Like, just... The price on the PS5 is going up, by the way. Yep, $50 because of the tariffs.
Right.
By the way, Edge. Okay. The ship's on autopilot through warp space, so get as much rest as you want while we go fast as fuck.
All the time, you.
I'll just stand here, not even minding my duties. Gravitational bypass communication system. Do you think they come with some of this stuff by a dartboard or what?
BCS.
Okay. Are you gonna listen to it? Oh, we gotta go over here.
Yes.
From the moon base. You want to shirk on your first message? Wait, is Shimada the fucking dude? I think so. Yeah, I think Shimada's the big baby man.
No roll.
Oh no, my hands are numb from the.
Yeah. That's his dumb shaking. Patience.
I didn't want to call him the fat ass. That just seemed like rude.
Whole ideas. It's that constant disrespect. That big constant rant.
I hope I get to smack him later.
Especially, yeah.
We all hate him.
That I've always that just said, we shall earn you that right. First we get a crowbar. Hear me out. It'll pop your neck.
No, flip.
Oh well, yeah. There's a game going on. It's so engaging.
They're talking a lot.
Yeah, they are. And you know what they were doing last time I watched?
Fighting a lot.
Getting ready to talk a lot after fighting a lot of very, very, very easy stuff.
They were more ant-like, frankly.
Oh, alright, to be fair, you're in like grabbing.
That's my edge. Ugh. Surprised that elaborate. I guess it was a side thing. It wasn't like, man, I think we just got good rapport with our people. And then they fucked off forever. Right, every time you're given the opportunity to run around your ship, you basically get optional story times. And these are completely missable in how you get the character endings. Maybe. You might have an edge up on the... Yep, here's another one. I was just telling FaZe about Crow, a guy we've seen in 2 cutscenes. He's not my brother. He's not my best friend. I'm gonna make him my bitch. He's gonna be my bitch. He always did beat you at everything. Why does FaZe look up to Edge so much already?
That multi. No, I don't know if it's true or not, but it's like.
Oh, I'm sorry, Spritz. Did you not catch on to the anime pro tag thing yet? His name is Edge Maverick. The game came out in the 2010s. Yeah, he's big time anime pro tag. This is as close to a Tales of game from that era as you're gonna get without me booting one up.
A little bit on the nose, isn't it? Maverick.
Yeah. I'm in your bedroom.
Endless. You've set them up that way?
Yeah, but I don't know. Sometimes I think of how big space is and it freaks me out. I don't know if they ever do take the place of Earth. I thought Earth was still a thing in all of them. We've made friends in space! Edge, if you insist! They keep telling me to do it. Oh.
To be fair, if the edging. Everything makes.
I didn't get the option to give Raimi a hug, sorry. But we did get Raimi points, so hooray. Is there anything else? No, we're done here. It's time to go down.
What?
No, I just did all that.
There's an exclamation.
Oh my god, they're here again. Humans were scared of aliens. I wonder why. I will apologize. We're friends. Let's be more friends. I love the soundtrack right now.
crucial moment.
A crucial optional moment. So is it gonna like give me a notice when I'm done, or nope, 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 nope. There's so many. Yeah, if you move forward, they're just gone forever. I was trained because I was good with the sword. That's why I miss every fucking time. They thought I sucked with a gun. And I wasn't a scythe person. That's later. Edge, why do you use a blade? His name is Edge.
Different show now, wouldn't we?
Ooh, we can trauma dump. Trauma dump. Trauma dump. Daddy died. Uncle Arnold? Okay, are you two related or not? Because you're like romantic. Am I trying to fuck my cousin? I'm very confused and would like to know. Am I romantically trying to get with my cousin? What is the context? I'm a little... Is it just an affectionate Uncle Arnold, friend of the family Uncle Arnold? Or is it like, yeah, my dad and your dad are brothers, want to make out? Because these are two very different things.
Are we in Space Kansas or Space Arkansas?
We got attacked by a bioweapon. That sounds cool to play.
So yeah, 2 more bolts.
I stabbed it with a knife. I suck with guns, but I'm good at stabbing. That's why I'm named Edge. That's why my friends call me Whiskers. Dad still died, though. Doesn't bother me anymore. I just think about it every time I stab things to death. Everyone keeps telling me to edge, and now they're ganging up on me. I won't let my weakness get the best of me.
No, too many mommies.
Oh, hey, there we go. Okay, there was a notice when I was done. Thank God. I could swear at least some of those were voiced. Oh, okay. Oh, we don't even get to go into the captain's room. We just...
All the time you want. Thank God you showed up on time.
They scaled that ship up good. Now initiating landing procedures. Is this do we really need to like get the technical like we're landing, Captain? We can breathe. That's good. I sure hope there's nothing scarier than the bugs on the baby planet, on this harder planet later in the game.
The bugs?
Maybe.
First minute. Guess something we can be.
Are you kidding me?
3.
Ed scratched his mom coming out, and Ed scratched his mom coming out, and that's why he's named that.
What?
That's Liz's joke about Edge. He scratched his mom on the way out, and that's why they named him that.
Ow.
Ouch, Maverick. This is a long second.
2. What? Liz? Ooh.
Congratulations, Liz. You upset the entire room. Oh, we don't get one for... Oh, okay.
My count was off.
So,
We landed.
Wait,
ahead
this
of
is...
schedule, sir.
I don't remember it being green. I thought we were on Snow Place. Uh-oh. Air has nitrogen, oxygen, argon, and a little tiny bit of carbon dioxide. It's basically Earth.
Lucky. There's big old life forms out there. That looks like snow.
Okay, yeah, it's snow.
Well, it could be like.
I mean, I just see big fucking rock panorama
Yeah, I see.
JPEG, but yeah.
I don't know. I see a lot of green trees.
Yeah, whatever.
The opposite of Star Trek. Go fuck shit up.
It was not written before global warming, I assure you.
Just my imagination?
No, Ed, you did not imagine the cutscene. Oh yeah, there's little traces of snow. It's starting to snow. Welcome to planet Lemurus. There we go. So which way is the wrong way? Always start. Oh my God, that's a plant on legs.
Ooh, bird thingy.
Angry chicken. The wildlife has come to say hello. I am so overwhelmed.
Nope, I have so short legs.
Oh, I got punched in the dick.
Hey!
A common egg.
Diligence.
That shadow under her nose is doing an adventure.
Yeah, it's a beauty mark.
I like how it still has the weird seam at the edge of the hair where the...
Legs.
I'm done. I was just trying to see the map at all before I ran around like a dipshit.
Dipshit.
Oh, the plant touched me on the back. I think this is what the game Dryads. Dryads and Mandragoras. It's fine.
Dude, I've seen a lot of this late game.
I was just getting warmed up.
Yeah.
Bring them on.
It goes on sale a lot. No, don't. No, you're saying you would have to 100% it? Don't do that to yourself. Yeah, I mean, there's just a big round thing with 3 entrances, huh? Gotta kill it.
Just keep your cool.
Come on, let's do this.
Spritz is seeing monster designs like, oh my god, they're monsters.
So you land on the planet, and the first thing you do is attack the person that comes up to you.
And the second.
And the second, so you're killing everything that comes up to you. What if they don't speak your language and think you as a threat? You just come out of the sky.
And start mauling them, yes.
What if they're a primitive culture? The Dryads at least look like they.
Well, I need to point out, we are looking for a new planet to colonize. So if we're killing a primitive culture, we're just fulfilling the American dream.
Just keep your cool.
Not just space America.
It is the USTA.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring them on.
Oh boy, I got its poo. I got its poop. I got a poop-covered egg.
Read all up in that cloaca. There's gotta be something on this bird.
Yes, dear. Help. Help, baby. I must help, baby. I must help, baby. I must help, baby.
Oh, excuse me. Use your computer. Use your computer.
Get it on it with Piggy. You can all stream the Phasmo with me. Yes. Or Phasmo. Or Phasmo, but with an audience. And the audience goes, this is scary. And I go, perfect game, perfect game, perfect game.
You did first. I know my role.
I was waiting for you to show up. I don't know if you saw my intro. I was very happy about it. I stuttered a bit. No, I did. For anyone who wasn't here for it, I'll do it as a restate. It's in the clips, I think, now. There is a Sonic Adventure resume your character playthrough style recap of the story so far. They're doing signage. I think they're considering food. Does it rhyme? Does it rhyme with schmizza? It's pizza. They're gonna do pizza.
Jesus.
Ooh, a box.
For all the veggies.
That's a pretty box.
It's a
Like an icy box? What is that?
I never get the cookies. They usually get cheese and pork.
I'm so strong they're all ignoring me already. Barbecue.
Take this advantage! Now,
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's
I
safe.
don't think I have 90 bucks.
Pounds up to eat a pound by yourself. You'll eat a pound, and I'll eat a pound, and you'll eat a pound. $32.
I could never get over this slight incline with moss on it.
Which another 20, so that's 50, and then I'll give you 60 bucks a nice for now.
Oh yeah.
28.
Good old-fashioned landscaping.
Good quality chicken.
Why was I on this there? Whatever. Maybe I just missed it. Yeah, we're way overpowered right now. It kind of sucks. Yeah, they're running.
So
They're all
actively
running.
Chasing down legitimate life forms. We come in peace, but we kill all the flora and fauna.
Listen,
Above the trees, we stab cookies off.
they had eggs and nectar.
Went right off its ass for its dog. Not having three.
There. That's elaborate. I didn't even get the crit kill.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's safe.
More poop!
Useful experience indeed.
They have baby spinach,
Bonus board does not maintain between sessions, what we learned. That's pro-con.
black olives, feta, provolone.
Gotta get that monster data.
come on! Now's our chance! Rising blade!
Can I attack like that? No, I just jump. Just jump around. What I'm made of.
Daily training is the key.
Nothing but pepperoni. Bread, no crust, no sauce.
They even put a rock in the way.
Stick with pepperoni.
Welcome to town. Now it's Star Ocean. We're in a medieval shithole.
Their civilization may not be as advanced as ours, but their way of life seems similar.
I hope our translators work properly. Huh? That's... No, it can't be.
It's a spooky box.
The gods have come!
Yeah, I've seen El Dorado. I know what to do here.
Our prayers have been answered! There's no mistaking it! I saw them with my own eyes! They came to us in their celestial ship!
What's going on?
Well, they're calling us
Celestial
gods.
Yes, I believe there's a high probability he's referring to the Calnus.
I'm not a
He
Vulcan.
must have seen us land.
And so they think we're gods, huh?
We beg of you, O holy ones!
Please don't kill us specifically. Hi, Santa Claus. Sorry about the reindeer accident. Ass.
I am the elder of the village of Trium.
Oh, I thought you were the
My
youngling.
name is Gendo.
That is an old man name.
I should have been the one to greet you, but unfortunately, in this condition.
Oh. Wow, and I thought I was hard, says Edge Maverick.
Of a sickness known as baculus.
It is not a
an
wine.
ancient and infectious malady that renders the body unto stone, as you can see. Then, in time.
A chicken on it?
I'm not detecting any viruses.
So we can't determine how it spreads.
Please,
Yeah.
lend us your divine
Bacon?
power. It's not just the sickness. Monsters never seen before have begun to run rampant.
Oh, here it is. Party member 4, everybody. It's time.
Every night, we pray to the great star ocean.
He said the thing!
Fervently begging for salvation. But alas, young lady.
Nice butt.
Sorry.
Sorry, I was
Here you go, Grandpa.
Yeah, don't worry about it. She's
Thank you, as always.
she's not all there.
Sure. Don't forget to water it, Kay.
Okay.
She certainly
Okay.
is a curious child, isn't she?
Please forgive the intrusion. This is my granddaughter, Limmel.
She's stirring the carpet, as you
Parents
do.
both succumbed.
Oh, never mind. She's doing stuff. She's symbology.
Finished. Grandpa, I finished drawing your amulet, so I'm gonna go north for a little while.
I'm not possessed
What
by
are
a
you saying?
demon.
You can't go off on your own.
I'll be fine. I'm just gonna go get a symbol and come back and heal everyone, okay?
I knew it! Symbology! Those markings are symbological in nature, though they do seem a bit different from our Eldarian symbols.
Symbology. That's the strange power you use, right, Face?
So, the people on this planet can use symbology too?
Anyone
Yes.
can use symbology.
In fact, Limmel
And
is
that's
the
why
most
Star
adept
Ocean 3
symbologist
happens.
in the village.
Best in the village? Surely you jest.
This is 4.
Shatter your bonds and come
But
forth.
chronologically, it's first.
Purgatory. Cerberus.
I think. Unless one of the new ones. Yep, fuck you.
He's my little doggy. Okay?
Was that this girl's symbology?
Limmel, how dare you?
No, it's alright. Anyway, what's she talking about? She's going to get a symbol?
To the north lies a citadel called Alanair. An oracle skilled in the symbological
It's the sister
arts
of
resides
Alouette.
there. If we can but entreat the
Alan.
oracle to bestow upon us a symbol to cure the baculus.
That's why I said I'm going, Kay.
Young lady, I'm telling you, you can't go alone. So, I'd like to beg a favor, if I may.
You want us to go with her?
What?
Would you?
He's psychic.
Hold on, Edge. Are you serious?
We
I'm always
can't just
serious.
ignore these people, can we?
And don't call me Edge.
Have you
Wait.
forgotten our SRF directives?
Yeah, did you see the
Investigate
fire
planets
dog?
Suitable for colonization and eliminate impediments to said colonization.
This baculus definitely sounds like an impediment to colonization to me. Finding a cure for this disease would make a fitting mission for the SRF, don't you think?
We have to kill this guy and stop one disease so we
nice
can
public
spread
face you put on.
smallpox. I mean,
Face? Is that a joke? Any captain would make the same decision.
space
It's
pox.
not a joke at all. You let the real reason slip a second ago. We can't just ignore these people. Isn't that where your heart really is, Edge?
Well, I mean, I'm the blonde one. I've seen Pocahontas.
In any case, we shall journey to this Alanair citadel you speak of, and return with the healing symbol.
And it won't do anything negative to me
We are
whatsoever.
a team, aren't we? And besides, how am I supposed to learn anything from you if I'm left behind here?
It's not like I've got any great knowledge to impart.
I'm literally some
Truly
guy.
make such a request of you, gracious gods.
Of course, but I do have a favor I'd like to ask.
Call me Yahweh.
Please, stop treating us like gods.
Wrong!
All right?
As you wish.
Thank you. I'm Edge Maverick.
Come with me,
It's
little
nice to
girl.
meet you, Limmel.
And I'm Raimi Sionji. We'll protect you, Limmel, so don't you worry about anything.
Ass.
Lim.
Lim? Would you rather we call you Lim?
Edgy.
I am.
Ray Ray. Edgy. Ray
Edgy?
Ray. Edgy. Ray Ray. Edgy. Ray
Ray
Ray.
Ray, huh?
Well, my name is Faze Shifa Beleth, so how about Fazy, Lim?
Call him nerd.
Limmel. Face.
Hey, at least it's not Mr. Beleth or something, right?
I hesitate to agree.
I'm going, Grandpa.
Ooh.
Hey,
Be careful out there.
A squint.
Face. I'm the
I'll make sure to heal you first, Grandpa.
Okay, little girl. You know, she's not actually my grandchild. She wandered in out of the woods one day, and I just gone with it.
Okay, we're going, Kay.
Just said that's.
See the fire dog.
Yeah, did you see the freaking dog though? Like, it's like, I'm not gonna argue with that. Oh, she's level 1. You know, her anime portrait's not as creepy.
Is it 14?
Her weapon is a candy wand. She has a symbologist robe. She wears jackass, and I can ruin her life by taking away her fire shit.
Give her a higher defense.
Nullifies fire. I feel like she starts with that for a reason. That suggests something. Anyway, town. We're in. Oh, it's nice and angel shape. Birdie. Yeah, it works too. What you got, homies? What's in here? Welcome to fucking Oblivion.
Self-proclaimed master.
Ultimate Master. Way of the liquidation sale. Me trying to sell commissions. Alright. Skill manual, botany. You can teach someone else botany. No one in your party can presently learn botany. She knows it. No one else can learn it. Parapsychology, a book which increases the item drop rate from zombies and shit. Alright. First aid. I could always get more first aid. Illusion. Escape from battle. Sure. Boom. Save some money. We don't know what we're going to need. Boom. There. We got some skill manuals. That's fun. What else? I didn't even see any of the shop icons right now. So I'm like, alright, cool. We got humans. Please, oh God, save our fucking village. We gotta live. When you approached me, you made sounds that I've never heard before in my life. Yeah, sorry, Faze has gas. He must be blind. I'm sorry, does even the NPCs do cold breath? That's actually a nice detail. It's not every breath. That breath cycle's doing a lot of work. Anyway, let's see if we can abduct any more small children. Fang flute. You talk about weird stuff. Can I go in every house? Oh, this is a weapon shop. Well, don't mind if I do. You buying? No. Take my shit. That reset? No, it actually carries. Don't care. Don't need that. Sell that shit. Sell that shit. Accept orders. Flame sword. Okay. Hunting bow. That'd be lovely. Oyakodon. Put a chicken egg on rice. Ho. I can buy a blessed sword. Kills undead more, but it's weaker. Mystic chainmail. Only good for one person. Doll that dies when you do. That's actually a cool item to have. Bowstring. I'm assuming I'm gonna need some of those at some point. I'm gonna buy. It's an equip. Yeah. Yeah. They're also gonna be here forever. Oh, you have to deliver on specific planets. So I hope that first one never dies. So let's see here. We have. Where is it? There we go. Skill manual, parapsychology. So many options. First aid. Okay, Faze, you're in their face a lot. Illusion, that's you. Okay, and just to see where things are at. Yes, it is 4 people in a party. Okay. Cool. And we have some slight equipment changes. I didn't change his because I don't want to yet. You change how they behave a little bit. Kind of? Kind of. It's nothing like you're hoping for. It's not like Kingdom Hearts or something. It's, where is it? Characters, tactics. We'll go down to fight freestyle. I'm going to change her to not be full force because, fight freestyle. Oh. Just in general. Full force is she's burning through her shit super fast. And she's all about mana. Yeah.
Fine.
Yep. We might try her. We'll see how it goes. Item shop. Ooh, item. Hi, Limmel and weird grown-ups with her. Two custard pie, ginseng, crystal.
Here for pie. Yeah, that sounds like
Every shop has its own thing. Okay, so we got plenty of those. Blackberries are for MP. We're fine for now. Well, 14 is how many I can carry out of 20. So I have 6.
oh, but it's all.
Yeah. 20. This is the max you can buy because it'll make you full. Cooking ingredient. Sage, I have some. Hot chocolate. Yep. Vile goop. Grease your weapon with it to gross out enemies and dampen their spirits. Absolutely. Several herbal medicines. Okay, empty bottle. I have some natural water. Okay, buy a little bit of everything. Well, I couldn't afford the gigi. Oh my god, there's more. Wow, okay. Cool. We know where to go for stuff. Yeah, who knew? I don't think that's here. No, I'm pretty much out of money right now. But don't worry, I can go outside and chase the creatures running for their lives from me.
At the very least, I'm afraid drying time's gonna be needed.
Maybe. Okay.
Oh, chilly old.
Thought that said you've all been coded for too long. I'm like, she knows! She knows! She knows! That is canon, by the way. The Twisted 3 where you're all in a simulation. Yeah. The whole series. Symbology is accessing the code of the universe. The reason they wanted to delete the Milky Way is because symbology spread through it. They didn't want that to happen. Basically, the game started trying to reprogram itself. The NPC started changing how the game works. Oh, of course I'll have dumb names. Welcome to Star Ocean. You're defenseless while you're spellcasting. Haven't you ever played any RPG? Did you know that things will still punch you in the face? Kinda. It's just bird shade. Okay. Oh, I skipped whatever you just said.
Whatever you do, don't forget, right along. Hazel? Hey, big-hearted man, wanted to talk to you for a second.
I hope Gimdo is all right by himself. If he's not careful, he's going to turn to a Zelda enemy with a name like that. Oh, he's done.
Here's his medicine.
I love that these fences look like gravestones. Here's his medicine. Make sure he gets it. Oh. This chest is encased in ice. If only someone in my party had something like Firebolt. Apparently she can't do that. Okay. Well, she has 170. No, she has no SP to start. Oh my god. Artistry allows you to create symbol cards and other symbology related items. Higher skill levels, more types items become available. Okay, we use party SP for this shit. Era psychology. Better items when killing a man. Okay, there we go. You are... Party SP versus individual. I use individual for skills. Usually I use party for my dudes. I'm getting a bonus 2 SP per fight right now until I close the game, basically, or take a critical hit. That's expensive. Do it.
Sprint max.
Sprint's only level 1. It's all it's funny. It starts max, but yeah. Okay, so I've been over there. I haven't been over on the left wing. Is there something in that house? No, I started here.
Started there, then went there, yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of... I feel like none of the item things were marked until I got close to them.
Kind of ran around people.
Well, yeah, they're people.
Yeah.
I have to say hi to the people.
But now all those things are starting to come up.
Nope, that one's nothing. Fuck that house in particular. Yeah, no, that's a little arrow marker. Means you're changing maps. This dude looks proud to be alive. Can you imagine just standing around like that alone in the middle of a field? He looks like he's like getting ready to piss. Look, Ma, no hands, just crotch out. Frozen. Don't get killed by the cold.
Oh, nice.
And whatever you do, don't trample all of our crops. Cat.
What the hell? Best title?
The end is near for this village. Okay. No chill for the. That's all you have to say. That's all you have to say.
The end is near.
Meow meow. Meow meow meow.
Meow.
Meanwhile, random space drain catcher. Meow. Meow. I'm gonna invade this random home.
No. Best friend.
It's cold as shit, ain't it? That cat looked angry. That's a woman? Oh, this is my nappy hole.
Oh.
I just sleep in Grandma's house here. Cat that's to treat me while Merlin treats any guest. Yes. Fire. Fire! Oh, hey, look, a save point.
Hey, save the months. Oh, yes, no.
The problem is you get into this cycle, like, I think the checking is a thing they did to reduce the functionality of saves coming, which they made more necessary. There are guides on how to do it, if that tells you anything. I'll explain in a minute. So I'm going to show you something, and it pisses me off. We have our monsters list, okay? So, somewhere around here is Armoros, the first boss. I will point out he is 30% scanned. Right, once per playthrough. So, a method people came up with on PS3 is since system data is where this shit is saved, this is one of the only things that carries between playthroughs, is the percentages here. Your levels don't carry, your skills don't carry, your completion of battle trophies carry, what difficulties you've unlocked carried, and your progression on this shit specifically in your Collectopedia carries. So your collection does carry that's finished, and your progression on monster scans. So monsters like this, since that's saved separate, you can load an older save before the boss, refight the boss again, and slowly fill this up. That will carry. PC, they tweaked that so you can't do it as easily, but there's still ways to do it. You just gotta have like one extra step apparently. Save the game a second time just to be safe, then load the old game. So it's its own fucking thing. These guys are cool. Like these. Look at that thing.
Design.
It's a good drawing. Like
I'm Zelda.
You got like fucking Birdman here.
Again, land on planet. That comes to you. Stab.
I know what Thanksgiving is.
But that was somebody's pet, huh?
And it fucked up right towards the big spaceship, I guess.
They did Mr. Rules. He pissed the
They killed him. You can't fit between that gap, really? Oh, come on.
I guess that explains the guy just handing you free basil and shit. Hey, go. Here you go, in a good mood.
It's tough. Yeah.
I know, that's what I was hoping for. I like how you get experience for opening boxes. This space, I know, right? Like, that's stupid. Look at that.
That's
Grr.
That's lazy stupid.
Yeah.
You could have put a big ass rock there. I would have been.
Could have done a lot of things there.
Bitch, that's not even a big ass rock. That's that.
That's so like, well, I don't want anyone to stub their toe. We're escorting a little girl. We need to be careful.
That is. Can we patch that Put a big ass rock there.
This is the patched version. This is the international version.
Sign that says
The reason.
super poisonous ivy and frost.
P.S. This is here. That's why I couldn't do that, even though I came this way.
Copy and paste that.
Sorry, I was having too much fun with that walk cycle. It just
Just keep your cool.
I mean, I gotta do this. That's fun. That's fun.
Plant.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's sick. Thanks to you, Edgy.
Twice.
Great. That's one fight. I think you might fight at least once more.
Also, whoever you're controlling is the background.
Gets mad at it.
Oh, geez. Use the fire symbol on an enemy weak to fire. Apparently I didn't do that because I was busy roasting Thanksgiving dinner. Get a bonus board tile. If you kill an enemy with only skills, that's a bonus board tile. Defeat 10 enemies with Cerberus. Die 10 times. Wow. I recall that being an issue for me. I guess that's what higher difficulties are for. Again, finished carries count stone. So if you die 9 times to New Game Plus, you're at 0. If you die 11 times, you keep the incapacitated 10, you're still at 0. Or any new ones. Defeat any enemy close range. Defeat an enemy using only Firebolt. That would also get you... Okay. Get knocked down a lot. Win without being targeted. Keep the rush gauge maxed out for 1 minute. Ew. Let everyone run away. Okay.
Scare away.
Just be too spooky, okay? What is that? Oh, they're lizard dudes. Did you say go poke it? It's coming to poke me. Oh, we're targeting that mushroom.
We must make the most of our trip.
There it goes. Oh, that's cheap, too. They need to expand it.
That's Fireball.
Yeah, that's the only skill she has right now. I could kill someone with just Fireball. The roll! That was fun. She's Sonic the Hedgehog!
I was just getting warmed up. Bring 'em on.
Tasty mushroom?
Who wants to eat it first?
Who's feeling brave? It's tasty? I don't remember what CP is. Oh, I think that's how many things you put. Hey! That's a lot of shit. Skullbreaker, weapon data. Oh, because that's what they carry. Okay, so, she now has... What is it? What is this one? Skill boost. She has enough CP of her own. I can come in here to her symbols. Oh, she has multiple things. Summon Cerberus to perform a devastating spin attack on the enemy. Oops. Firebolt. Unleashes 3 enemy-seeking fireballs. That's cheap. We can do that twice. Okay. Battle config. Do you have 2 buttons? You do. No one else does. Good for you. Okie dokie. It's expensive though right now. It's 2,000 each time. I'm trying to explore the area around town because I keep finding boxes and shit, and I'm a hoe. I can't help it. I'm a hoe for freebies. Also, I want to set this guy on fire. Come here!
About letting it run away. It's just one time.
Basically, I have to tell them to not do anything and let her kill it, which would be easier if she was doing enough damage not to immediately get mauled.
I could have done this all by myself.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Edge, don't beat in front of the little girl. Cool hallway. A mushroom. Hell yeah, I'm gonna lick that. Earthbound rules for encounters, if you ever want being all weird about it. Okay, I gotta try Cerberus, right? Charging up!
I was just getting warmed up. Bring him on.
Yeah, she's the button. Oh, Raimi's paralyzed.
That's what I'm talking about.
Edge learns.
Edge learns. Sparking Brit.
That's so stupid. I love it. Yeah, why would she do her victory pose? She's kind of busy right now. She's. Oh, it's cool, guys.
It's thanks to you, Reggie.
Across the board.
I hate that the little girl says things like, it's thanks to you, Edgy. I'm like, that sounds like something you'd call your vibrator.
Would you like to meet Edgy? Oh.
He's punk.
The legend.
Okay, Liz is hoping for Faze to have an evil goth twin so that she can scream it's not a Faze.
Alright. Oh boy.
I'm not spoiling anything. That is a thing where if you have someone who can drill into walls, you get rocks.
Oh, but you...
I don't have the man with the robot drill arm, no. Because the game is cruel and hates me. That's a lot of dudes. If only I had a solution for dealing with a lot of dudes, like a giant dog! Jesus, that thing hits a lot. It's so good. It's a little expensive, but it's really funny. And I have the fucking every pink dare on the side is a recovery of 1% of my MP every match. Carried that from the last planet. I've now learned about Lizard Soldier.
Well, you just killed 4 of them. You think you'd learn a little...
But there was 2 types of lizard there, actually, technically.
We can use this.
What is it? So... Ooh, lemon.
Oh, I can get nectar without killing all of the wildlife.
Here's some money. Universal bowl of this space planet. That's what it does.
Grandpa broke the bridge, but nobody got mad at him. Adults can get away with anything. Maybe she is autistic. Alright, we're not going that way. North. Listen. It's so the movie can happen.
Oh, my bad. Right off that thing.
Thank you.
Hey, look! Murder it with a prejudice. They look rough.
Yeah, they do. And he's running away.
Oh, you learned to just move it.
I do, I forgot.
Yeah, I remember.
You know, it'd be easier to target something if it was able to stand up and hit me. There we go. Give me that bonus XP, baby. There we go. Yeah, whoa. 10% bonus XP on the table. Oh, good, I skinned him.
Daily training is the key.
We're not gods. Carve off flesh.
This feels pretty good, Kay.
Look at this PlayStation 3 era ground texture, Kay. Oh, there's B and S. It's strike and... I can look.
Shotgun.
Beat. Tell them how they beat.
Beat.
Strike and burst. Burst is if they're focused on casting. Strike is if you're focused on up close. There's also neutral. Neutral does not progress but gets the stat bonuses if you're ranked for both. It does not, however, get all the things on the side that are like, you know.
It's a neutral. Yeah. You have a new skill called something. Shotgun.
Yes. RT is what I use for Rising Blade. Make a beeline for the enemy, slashing along the way. Okay. Along the way.
Dash.
Dashing through the bros, gonna cut open their face, spread their guts and goo all over the damn place. I will make them scream, and I will make them cry, but most of all, before I'm through, I'll make these fuckers die. Oh, you are fucked, you're so fucked, I'm coming for you. Alright, that was alright. That bird died in one. I like how he has a sword, but he spends a lot of time just like, yeah, what if I just punched you in the jaw? Bonus board now has 2 touching blues, which means if I take a critical, I'll have 1 touching blue. That bird was raging. Take a nap.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring 'em on.
My chat has died. No one's talking to me no more. Hello? I sang a whole song.
Playing Jingle Bells.
I did.
Jingle Bells.
Yeah.
This feels pretty good, Kate.
Okay, but listen, it was Jingle Bells about murdering guys, so...
But it had been the start of murdering guys.
Twinkle, twinkle, little bit, you are dead and in a ditch. See, it's just not the same. Oh, I have to look at this weird land penis, right? Like, why does this exist? Why am I walking on this dong? I don't know, there's nothing here. I guess I can look at Low Poly Town from afar. Nice. Yeah, look at this, you can see it. Look at this dude, he looks like I should kick him off and he'll just... Oh! Oh, he didn't die with hit. That would have been funny. Target me for some reason. Yeah. That's why. Homies are chasing after a bird. Okay. Fun fact, anyone can get hit by a critical with no punishment, except for the main character. Whoever you're playing as, if you get hit with a critical hit, the bonus board shatters. You lose half of anything that's touching and anything that's not touching. Basically, a two thing touching forms like a cluster. A guard of sorts. Vile goop!
Wow. Bill, that was pricey.
Yeah. Now I got it from a box in the woods.
That's what it does.
I wish I could pan this map.
No pan, no zoom.
No pan, no zoom. Just left to wander and wander into this water that looks very safe.
Oh, hey, it's your ship.
Oh, hey, it's my ship.
Hey.
It's just parked there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like, okay.
What?
The ship's right there. Yeah, it's like...
This is a whole lot of field with nothing in it. Like, damn, was there supposed to be... Well, there's a purple over there. That seems important. I hope that's a good direction to go, because I think that's where we're heading right now. Unless they're like, don't do that. Okay. Found berries. Other fun fact I learned. There is achievements for opening every chest in the game. You have to take what's in them. If you cannot carry anything in the chest, it doesn't happen. It just closes. If you can carry one thing in the chest, it counts. Takes it all. Broke on. Okay. Is that mushroom scarier? Well, there's a treant thing over there. Let's see what happens. Giant fungus. I thought they have names like giant fungus, and then we'll have a... He has a get-up attack. So do I. I've never found a way to change target, and I would really love to, like, just change target. This sucks! Excuse me! There's short and long range up there. It does matter. It just doesn't matter the same way it used to.
Bring 'em on.
Tasty mushroom.
I must become
That one
stronger.
wasn't a question mark.
Maybe now I can give some help to everyone.
That was a new
You're
enemy.
gonna kill the giant fungus?
Was that a new enemy, or did I just finish its collection? Roller Chalet, as one does. Dryad, Lizard Soldier, Mistgrave.
A monster. That's Mistgrave. You just did giant fungus.
Yeah, that's way up here. We went the scary direction. I don't think we're supposed to be here yet.
You're just okay. That explains it.
There's also big ass rocks in the way, so that might be
Oh, I see.
a subtle hint that I'm not supposed to be here yet. Why would they put that past the loading
go.
screen? Listen, we're playing Star Ocean 4.
If you feel like you're doing good.
Yeah, what game this is? Why can't we go up that nice grassy hill? Penis.
You could go the easy way, but let's. We can take the plane, but we're gonna.
The plane's not so bad now. What sucks is later on when you're on a huge planet and there's like one landing site on the whole thing. And once you're on Roak, because every Star Ocean goes to Roak eventually, and usually takes place primarily on Roak, you're just like, I live here now. Something happening, yes. Oh yeah, there's two lizard guys.
Just keep your
What? Does sound like a nice thing. Can you not be like
Right back to you there. You said and at some point.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring 'em on.
God,
pizza?
Yep.
Bedtime? Scared
yeah.
glare?
Notification of how bedtime it actually.
Okay, little.
You're very aware.
Yeah, mom's mom.
Now's the time to split.
Bet.
Take this.
I am stabbing this man.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's safe.
Yeah,
Daily
it was
training.
definitely a harder place.
So it's not only
This feels pretty good, Kate.
enough that it was far.
That one mushroom I have to leave and come back to respawn. Yeah, that's the real cinch right there. I am so disoriented on this right now. Okay. I want to go behind this weird wall. I mean, look at it. Look at this weird wall. Why does this exist? Oh, I see.
Especially at the light of all this seldom of where we want to. I just like this not being all of wherever I want. It doesn't feel like a letdown, but it's so a little letdowny.
I guess.
Used to sandboxes.
I don't really like sandboxes. Is the thing I'm learning. I get it.
I do Minecraft. I like that because I can regular Minecraft.
Okay, I wasn't doing anything.
Wonderful. I'm so glad everyone's
I
safe.
think I find myself like burrowing into wood country.
Yeah, you really do. And everyone's like, well, the game's done when you say it's done. I'm like, okay, cool, but the problem is that entails you have the mental capacity to let yourself stop.
I don't have that sweet.
I am more likely to get bored than finish the game. That's the problem. The only reason I finished Tears of the Kingdom at all is because it is Zelda. So if I run on this, yeah, okay. So there's a save point up there. I'm sure that's nothing important, all right? We have no side quests yet. We're over leveled, so I guess
There's going to
yeah.
be. Hey, bang on the snow place though.
I remember some things.
Hey, bang on.
It gets pretty memorable once you have the creepy little haunted girl on you all the time. Oh. That's also where the everything is secretly an innuendo really hits. So, because everything she says, like, oh, and it's aged terribly to boot because his name is Edge. It was already bad when this came out, and then it became the phrase for jorking it for a long time. It probably was, I know, but like the internet is more, yeah. Poor edging. That sucked. Edge keeps killing them. He's too fucking strong for anyone else to do anything. There's all this stuff that's specifically supposed to be fucking... You're not meant to play not Edge at this point. You're just supposed to be Edge all the time. You're like, oh yeah, we didn't tell you can swap characters yet.
I was just getting hooked up. Bring him on.
It's like, no, it's like, it's me. I'm just...
But the thing is, you have to get Faizers battle trophies now or never, basically, if you want them. Because at some point, for reasons I will not get into, he will leave the party, and he doesn't come back. That sucks. I remember this building specifically. Ooh, I'm sure that's nothing. Items. Use items. Skill manual. Hide. Makes enemies less likely to target you. Okay, I know who to use that on. Well, I was gonna say Raimi or Lemmy, but Raimi can't learn it for some fucking reason.
Skill count.
She just
No, we're just like, can't learn.
What? What happened? Oh. Well, I'm very sad now. I taught that to her, right? Is it just passive? We thought we were gonna get a kitty. We don't get a kitty. Oh no, it's just there. I guess it's just passive. That sucks. Something's working its way inside of Edge. Fuck you, Raimi! I am. I was excited for a kitty. This room has balls. Oh my gosh. What? Here you go. I'm sorry, I wanted to look at the shiny rock that's definitely not important. What do you want?
Come on, let's do this now. You'll see what I'm paying.
The fact they didn't heal me before the big dumbass dungeon makes me kind of mad at my 10 state. No, if she had any offense, this is not a bad hit. Oh, there's your knockdown. No, it's cool. I'm helping.
I was just getting warmed up. Bring them on.
This feels pretty good, Kate.
See, here's the lazy part of me, right? We got pizza coming. We know where we need to go. What did this do? Oh, okay. Oh. Okay. No, that's cool. Let me check something. We're about 3 hours in. I could call it soon. I want to eat food and stuff. Yeah, let's go back to town for now. We'll do the dungeon next time. We have a whole ass goal now, so that's cool. That's good. That's good. We know it's next time.
Next time you'll start up and get ready for the dungeon. Excuse to heal before you save.
How do I get down this? Oh, it's over here, obviously. At some point, I'm just looking at the map. Like, I don't know. Oh, where am I going right now?
Yeah.
Back to town. I'm sorry, nothing's actively picking a fight with me. I've been doing it for my own amusement.
No, yeah, pretty sure.
I'm a sociopath.
On planet, start killing. Okay, great. Get that.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. I love being defeated by a bridge. My one weakness. Chunk of wood. Oh yeah, no. The other thing that makes me say I'm gonna lose my bonus board. That doesn't save. Yeah. No, this isn't emulated. This is Steam. Yeah. I don't know. PS3 emulation's kind of shit, isn't it? Or have they gotten the hang of it? This does have an Xbox version.
Maybe now I can be of some help to everyone.
I must become stronger.
This feels pretty good, Kate.
Apparently, if the chat goes long enough without anyone talking, it notifies me new when someone says something. Hey, in case you zoned out, new. Oh yeah, thank you. I was asleep. Yeah, I know. They tried. My feed's actually working today. It shows me I got new followers. It shows the donations for my stupid donation game. Yeah, cool. Oh! What?
There, I found another 25.
I could have done
Nice.
this all by myself. Too easy.
Daily training is the key.
Yeah. No.
I don't want to pour it down. Nope.
Dell did like 100-foot one, and then the rats chewed through it, or you'd have it. Back when we had those. Back when my life had good things.
You just got presents. You're kidding.
I just got told I'm not getting a new kitten.
You fed. Not like shit.
We literally had it set up for Friday to meet this cat. Have this cat. It sucks.
It's sucks.
Alright, we made no progress on any of that. Bye. I mean, I can go back. It's just sad to me. Hi, Grandma. I want to sleep in your house, you old man-looking lady. You Alex Baldwin ass.
Thank you.
She looks like Alex Baldwin. Look at her. Can you not see it? I can see it.
I can see it.
Alex Baldwin looking ass is a woman. Oh yeah, sure, it's something. It's a person. You could have called that old space goat. I would have been like, sure. Sure, man. Do I have anything worth a shit to end this on here for goodies? Not really. Accuracy seeds. Hit better. Hey, maybe the arch... Fuck you, FaZe. God. Your little fucking pokey stick. You can't do nothing right, bitch. Gonna give hit to the archer. It just feels right. Restores 50% HP, but might cause poison.
Sometimes.
Highly preservative? Highly poisonous.
Delicious tea and late poison. Oh, hey, but you can wear the anti-poison amulet first.
You know what? That's true. That's true. That's true. It's not like Limel's wearing anything else. I'm sorry, wait. Improved defense by 10? That's fine.
Oh, well, if you're going to twist my arm about it.
Oh, no, that's too bad. Can I skill boost anybody? Can I boost anybody? Oh. Party XP on smithing. I can do that exactly one more time. Sure. You can improve healing, a thing he's definitely doing. It's nice of them to give you the healing skill for the main character, don't get me wrong.
That damage each round.
Well, this is 353, this is now 366, it's little bits.
Yeah, that's like 15 to 20%. That's a significant jump.
Yeah. Little things.
The whole thing gets it by 10 about over again.
Body's almost done. More burning, more fire. And there's a save thing right here. We're fully healed. We have all our shit sorted. We know what's next. We're about 6 hours in.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
You think you get a dungeon running up on your next? Just come back to town and gotten it. It'll be good if you back in building your
Not as long as I'd initially planned, but it's, again, Wednesdays are... Now, to be fair, she asked you to.
To be fair,
Whatever. You're right, Chris. You could have fucked off and died, and that truly would have fixed everything if you fucked off and died, I'm sure.
No, an alternate universe, sometimes violence.
I think you need to chill. Right here is, yeah. It's cool they have weapons that aren't yours. Here's Welch's thing. Here's this thing. Right on. We've done some stuff.
There's Dodge.
Make sure I do this again, just in case I fucked up. Okay. And while we're there. Okay. You know, grab that. Okay. I don't need pixel chat right now. I can hide that. Okay. It is time for me to go. Thank you everyone for joining. The duration of these will be a bit random, I'm afraid. Nature of Wednesdays, I'm never sure. That's the point of Wednesdays. That's part of why I do this. So I will see you next time. Good night, Solar. And whoever else is lurking, because the site doesn't tell me who's lurking. But I love you even if you're lurking. Yeah, thank you for showing up. I'm gonna go eat pizza now. Bye.